One of life's most significant occasions is a wedding, which commemorates a newlywed couple's fresh start. In addition, my spouse and I were present at my sister-in-law's wedding today. In all honesty, I didn't particularly want to go, but I did. But as the event went on and the food was brought out one by one, I inadvertently ended up with a kids' dinner. Everyone else, meanwhile, appeared to be savoring fine French fare. With a cunning smirk, my mother-in-law came up to me while I was questioning the staff about this confusion. She looked down on me and asked, "Are you enjoying the wedding?" My spouse spoke before I could reply. Olivia is my name. I recently turned 32, and I operate my own original clothing business. William, who is 2 years my senior, is my spouse. We met at a retail store and were married 3 years ago. The majority of my company's merchandise is offered for sale in department stores and clothing stores. One of those stores employed my husband as a security guard. He was younger than most of the security guards, which made him stand out to me. He was 29 and I was 27 at the time. Despite his muscularity, he maintained a slim appearance. After we were married, I found out that he had been a firefighter before retiring early because of a lung damage he had received in a fire. He eventually asked me out to dinner, and we met each time I went to the employee entrance to sell my products. Our friendship began when I was unmarried, and one thing led to another. 2 years later, we were married. My husband and I have a happy life together. We don't fight very often. The problem is that we don't spend much time together because we're both very busy at work. But except from one problem with his family, I have no grievances. Sarah, his older sister, is 35 years old. And Sarah was a real pain in the ass. It all began one day when my spouse and I were able to use our paid time off to take the same day off. Why don't we go shopping since we finally have a day off together? That sounds fantastic. It's ideal because I've been craving new shoes. Seldom do we get the same days off. Being a business owner makes it difficult for me to take time off. I'm to blame since, as the owner, I find it more difficult to take days off on my own. When it comes to taking time off, I feel like I have the least priority. In addition, I frequently work till the morning on my everyday responsibilities. Because of this, when my spouse departs for work in the morning, I generally miss him. But when we were finally set for our date, our doorbell suddenly rang at 7 a.m. Who could it be at this time? My husband grumbled as he went to answer the door. Then hurry up and open up. Someone was yelling. "Sis," he exclaimed, and I followed him to the door. When we opened it, there stood my sister-in-law Sarah with a suitcase. "Sarah? What brings you in at this hour?" We were completely baffled. Then, with a nonchalant expression, she said, "Let me stay here for a while, okay?" "Excuse me? What do you mean, sis?" Naturally, we were perplexed. She just showed up out of the blue, asking to stay, as if it was the most natural thing. And so we asked, "Why? What's going on? You didn't even tell us you were coming." "Well, I'm getting married soon, and the venue is close to your home. It's a hassle to come all the way here for venue inspections and dress fittings." "Then I remembered you both lived around here," she said and started to barge in. I immediately objected. "Wait, we finally have a day off together, and we were about to go out." Hearing this, Sarah's face suddenly brightened. Then, "Oh yeah, we're going shopping," she said, getting excited. My husband and I exchanged a look. Don't tell me you're planning to come with us?" I asked hesitantly. "Why not? Is there a problem?" she retorted defiantly. At her audacity, my husband and I were dumbfounded. Then she added, "I want to go look at baby stuff. I want to make sure I'm ready for the baby." She seemed all set to tag along, taking the lead while we stood frozen at the entrance. "Come on, let's get ready. We'll leave by 9 a.m. "How are we going?" "By car." My husband's face darkened at her self-centered attitude. I rarely see him look so gloomy, but it seems he's never gotten along with his sister. He mentioned they used to fight a lot as kids. Is there any way you can leave?" "William and I just want to enjoy our day off together." Sarah glared at me and snapped. "What? You want to exclude me?" Wait, you're from a single mother family, right? Yes, I am. So what? Huh. Figures. I've known some people from single mother families, and they lack empathy. They always look down on others. Her words were ironic, as she was looking down on me while saying that. She just claimed that single mother families produce judgmental people, and was she not doing exactly that? Unlike me, she had both parents. Her whole perspective was a baseless stereotype, and it infuriated me. That's prejudice. I'm not like that. And look, even William is uncomfortable. I looked at my husband, and he was glaring at his sister. What's up, William? You got something to say to your own sister, she taunted him. Of course I do. Please just go home. My husband's tone was firm. Fine. But don't come crying to me later, especially you, Olivia. I wondered why she singled me out. Thanks for the warning, I replied nonchalantly. With that, she left without another word. After successfully getting rid of her, we had breakfast and went to the nearby mall. But the unlucky start to our day seemed to continue. After shopping, we decided to rest on a bench. Then we unexpectedly ran into Sarah again. Look who it is. The same too. Guess we ended up at the same place. Sis, my husband muttered. Then we heard someone calling her name. It was a familiar voice. It was my mother-in-law. Sarah, let's go see those luxury bags over there. Approaching us, his mother noticed us too. William and Olivia? You too. Mom. He sighed, sounding exhausted. I felt the same way. Dealing with his sister was hard enough, but his mother made it worse. Why? Because she's simply unpleasant, and she quickly showed it. Is that bag from Infinity Tread Shoes? She pointed at the shoe store bag my husband was holding. Yeah, it is. She and his sister exchanged looks and laughed. Since when do you wear such cheap shoes? Look at our matching luxury brand shoes. William, choosing the wrong partner brings misfortune. Their contemptuous gaze was mostly directed at me. It was clear I was the main target of their disdain. You talking about me? I asked impulsively, to which my sister-in-law replied, I wonder if we are. Dodging the question, she hurled insults at me. Then my husband interjected. Enough, Mom. Your consistent bragging about wealth has always been embarrassing and annoying. He was angry, a side of him I had never seen. His job as a security guard lent authority to his voice, but it seemed to have no effect on these two. William, you were born into a wealthy family. Are you okay with this? Being with this uneducated, poor woman. Education doesn't matter much these days. And Olivia is. Despite them being his family, he prioritized defending me. That alone made me happy and strengthened my trust in him. But the two, faced with his opposition, cut him off before he could finish. That's not true. Dad got his job at a major company because of his education. He's even the vice president now and will soon be president. William, you graduated from a famous university and yet you're with a woman like this? You've really fallen. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law treated me as an outsider, steering the conversation their way. Despite my husband's retort, they showed no remorse. To me, their nature seemed utterly rotten. How much do you earn, by the way? My dad earned $100,000, 120, 000. Before I could finish, my sister-in-law interrupted. Wait, $120,000 a month? She laughed mockingly and continued, Sorry, I should have been more considerate. That must be tough, especially for a dropout. Hey, enough, my husband tried to interject. But my sister-in-law placed a hand on his shoulder and then said, Well, good luck, Sarah. My husband was visibly angry. I felt a surge of hatred inside me, but these two seemed oblivious to our feelings, continuing the conversation at their own pace. Oh, you both better attend the wedding. Mom's preparing a grand event. Yes, we're sparing no expense for our darling daughter's wedding. You're coming, right, Olivia? The pressure from my mother-in-law felt like I couldn't say no. My husband, being family, would obviously attend. I guess it's okay if he's there. Reluctantly, I agreed to go. If my husband weren't there, I would never attend such a wedding. The day of my sister-in-law's wedding arrived. I finished my piled-up work and even got a new dress with my husband for the occasion. Arriving at the venue, it was clear my mother-in-law wasn't exaggerating. The luxury hotel, the huge ballroom, decorations, and the size of the wedding cake all spoke of extravagance. "You both made it," my mother-in-law approached us upon arrival. Not that I wanted to make it. This was probably my husband's true feelings, showing an uncharacteristic weary expression to his mother. This wedding cost $100,000. We have 500 guests, and the meal is a special course by a top chef. Impressive, isn't it? Only we could do this. She looked down on everyone, but passers-by only offered polite, light smiles and nods. I was appalled by her need to flaunt her status. "Why didn't you spend this much on our wedding?" My husband's words reflected our reality. Our wedding was modest, costing $20,000. Therefore, it was a simple wedding with only relatives and a few friends invited. But I was still happy with it. I was content. But in terms of treatment, it was indeed unfair. After all, my husband is her blood-related son. What are you saying? Sarah's fiancé Alex will soon work directly under Dad, directly. Of course, when Dad becomes president, he'll be groomed to be a key player in the company. It's only natural we welcome him appropriately. Saying this, my mother-in-law laughed proudly. While we were talking, my father-in-law joined us. "Emily, it's almost time for Sarah and Alex to make their appearance. Aren't you going to take pictures in the front row?" It felt like he was putting an end to our conversation. But it seemed he too was at odds with us. After speaking to my mother-in-law, he turned to us and said, "It's been a while, Olivia. You should feel honored just to be invited to such a lavish wedding. You'll probably never experience anything like this again in your life." Unlike my mother-in-law, he spoke calmly, but his words were laced with condescension. My husband couldn't help but retort, "Why do you have to say it like that, Dad?" My father-in-law replied with a cold expression, "Don't get me wrong. I never approved of your marriage. Remember the conditions I said?" My husband glanced at me briefly before looking away. What? I had never heard what was about to be revealed. The fact that our marriage was never approved by his dad was new to me. Turning away from me, my husband spoke weakly. "Graduate from a famous university. Earn over $100,000 a year. That's right. You remember well. And Olivia," turning his gaze briefly to me and then back to my husband, he continued, "Olivia did drop out, but it doesn't matter. She's making money." Before my husband could finish, my mother-in-law interrupted him, shouting, "Daniel, look. Sarah has finished changing into a second dress." She shouted loudly toward us. If it weren't for the fact that this was her daughter's wedding, such behavior would surely have warranted complaints for being disruptive. Others glanced at her, forcing smiles. Called by my mother-in-law, my father-in-law said, "We'll talk about this later," and left the scene. My husband murmured, "Olivia is much more amazing than you think, Dad," as he watched his father leave. I felt comforted knowing he thought so. No matter what, he was on my side. That truth alone lifted my spirits more than anything. When the bride and groom appeared, the hall erupted in applause. The feast began with my sister-in-law's announcement. "We have a special course prepared by a top chef today. Please enjoy it." After her words, the wait staff began serving the food. However, my mother-in-law and a server were arguing close by. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes, just do it." "I understand." The server left looking uncomfortable, which I soon realized was the preparation for a prank on me. With the large number of guests, serving the food took time. And when my meal finally arrived, I was taken aback. In front of me was a kid's meal. I immediately asked the server, "Excuse me, but there must be a mix-up." I questioned calmly, despite thinking such a mistake was unusual. The server looked at me uncomfortably, the same one who had spoken with my mother-in-law earlier. "Can you replace it, please?" I added. As the server remained silent, finally he spoke. "This isn't a mistake. I was instructed to serve you the kids' meal. What? My voice of surprise made my husband join the conversation. What's wrong, Olivia? Why a kids' meal? He too was surprised to see my meal. Why is my meal different from everyone else's? It was more embarrassing than shocking. People around started to stare at me. Why do you have a kids' meal? I don't know either. Then, my mother-in-law approached, laughing. How is your meal? Perfect for a dropout from a single-parent home, right? If you don't like it, you can leave. My mother-in-law was unilaterally spouting whatever she wanted to say. I was reaching my limit of patience. No matter how much I disliked my sister-in-law, I couldn't ruin someone else's wedding. I had been holding back because of that. But if the mother-in-law, who was orchestrating the wedding, was causing the disruption, there was no need for me to keep holding back. Just when I thought this, my husband spoke up first. Seriously, what are you doing? Aren't you embarrassed by this childish behavior? His tone was calm, but filled with anger. His eyes weren't smiling. I had never seen such a cold expression from him, as if he were looking down on an inferior creature. What childish? What are you talking about? My mother-in-law feigned ignorance, but my husband didn't let her get away with it. This. Everything. Why serve a kid's menu to an adult? It's obvious Olivia wouldn't order such a thing. Then my mother-in-law retorted, her face turning red. Marrying a poor woman, and you dare to talk back to us? You've become a mere commoner since you married her, away from our elite path. What a terrible way to speak. Though the notion that wealthy people are superior exists everywhere, my mother-in-law seemed to exceed that by far. I interrupted their conversation and spoke coldly to my mother-in-law. True, I did drop out. That's because my parents passed away before I could finish middle school. But now, I'm the president of a company. President? I bet it's nothing significant. My mother-in-law's momentum was unrelenting. Seeing this, I sighed. I didn't want to do this because it's so childish, I muttered meaningfully, prompting a curious look from my mother-in-law. What exactly do you do? She spoke arrogantly, thinking she was in a superior position. It was disgusting to see such an attitude. Daniel's company is Solar Burst Innovations, right? Yes, that's right. And he'll be the next president. Is that so? By the way, the current president, Morgan, is a major client of my company. The socks distributed in his company every month are commissioned directly to my company by Morgan himself. What? My mother-in-law was momentarily lost for words. The socks I mentioned, developed by my company, were exceptional for their comfort even after long hours of wear. Originally, the technology was used for t-shirts, but was expanded to all clothing types. Everything Morgan wore was from our company. I was the one who suggested he try our socks for his entire company. Then he told me that he would provide our socks to his employees. Since then, our relationship with him has been close professionally. As mentioned, everything he wore was made by our company. That means even if you boast about your husband becoming the next president, if I report to Morgan about you, that might just remain a dream. As I said this, my mother-in-law's face turned pale, as if her fever had broken. You know him? The president of my husband's company. Did you know Morgan didn't go to high school either? What? He's one of those uneducated people you despise. Shall I convey your words about the importance of education to him exactly as you said them to me? When I said that, my mother-in-law pleaded, please no. Don't do that. Her demeanor completely weakened. People like her crumble easily when they realize their power is threatened. As my father-in-law rushed over, I repeated the same to him. Daniel, I'll advise Morgan not to make you the president. Please don't do that. If that happens, does your pride not allow it? My onslaught was relentless. I was surprisingly calm while confronting both of them. As I stood up to my in-laws, the surrounding crowd became noisy. Of course they did. Trouble had started just as the meal began, and only our table's progress had stopped. Sensing the commotion, my sister-in-law approached our table. What's all this fuss about? Unaware of the situation, I bluntly told her, Sarah, by the way, I make over $120,000 a year. My business is stable. Thanks to that, I didn't tell you the other day because you interrupted our conversation." Upon hearing this, my sister-in-law's face contorted. She stood frozen, gripping the hem of her dress. After I fought back, the entire in-law family looked as if their souls had been sucked out in an instant. "So, everything we've been doing to you is?" "Yes, just harassment towards me, and self-destructive acts that undermine Daniel's position." As I declared this, my mother-in-law suddenly changed her attitude and knelt on the floor. She clasped her hands together. "I'm sorry, please. I beg you, forgive me." Seeing her, I wondered if she had any pride left at all. Her readiness to get on the floor so easily seemed almost refreshing, but it still wasn't a reason for me to forgive them. "No, I won't. You've judged and insulted people based on their appearances. You should face the consequences. Please, we've almost used up our savings for this wedding. If I don't become president and get a higher salary, we'll struggle financially." My father-in-law got on the floor following my mother-in-law's example. My sister-in-law watched with a powerless expression and then asked weakly, "Huh? Dad, you're out of money." "Yes, I used all I had for this wedding, as a gift to you too." "What about our honeymoon funds?" Alex's promotion, her voice trembled, but she was only lamenting her worsened position, disliking being brought down from her pedestal. It was all about her own convenience. She wasn't trying to solve anything by herself, always depending on others. "Wait, you boasted about being wealthy and were planning to go on your honeymoon using your parents' money? How shameful." "What did you say?" My sister-in-law retorted, but she had nothing more to say. To all three of them, I declared, real wealthy people and celebrities don't brag about themselves. In other words, you're all just fakes. Know your place. Oh, my harsh words completely disheartened them, and my husband murmured his admiration. After that, of course, the wedding was no longer feasible and we suddenly had free time. We left the pitiful wedding venue of my sister-in-law. Later, I explained everything to Morgan. "Got it. So, it wouldn't be fun for you if Daniel became president, right?" "To be frank, yes." "Don't worry. I won't forgive Daniel for insulting you, nor will I make him president. Maybe I should transfer him to an overseas branch." Morgan laughed as he said this. A week later, my father-in-law rushed to us. "Please, convince Morgan to cancel the overseas transfer." His face was filled with desperation. Apparently, Morgan was seriously working to transfer my father-in-law to another branch. When I heard it was Brazil, a half-day flight away, I almost burst into laughter. In the end, Morgan didn't cancel the request, and my father-in-law, unable to go to Brazil, seemed to have resigned from the company. Additionally, there was a big commotion involving my sister-in-law's fiancé due to recent events. First, the wedding turned into a complete mess. Then, the promised position at my father-in-law's company fell through when he resigned. My sister-in-law's fiancé originally worked in Italy. He moved to America for the wedding only to be caught up in this absurd drama. In the end, my sister-in-law's marriage was called off, and she was in great shock. She ended up in the hospital. My mother-in-law, affected by the downfall of my father-in-law and the mental breakdown of my sister-in-law, lost all her hair and now looks like an old woman. As my husband said, the lives of these three people who freely insulted others lost their shine in an instant, like a diamond that turns out to be just a lump of carbon. The wealthy life of my in-laws was nothing but a facade of pretense. Life can hinge on a single event influencing the future. This applies equally to both good and bad events. This was indeed such an occasion, I believe. As for me, I'm using my savings to prepare for building my dream home with my husband. While my in-laws' lives were becoming more difficult, my business was generating more and more profits. Moreover, perhaps due to things settling down, I'd become pregnant. With financial stability and a growing family, we must seem like celebrities to my current in-laws. Still, I made a promise to myself to live happily with my husband and our future child, never becoming arrogant no matter what.